All right, well, another lovely Tuesday morning, the 21st of May 2024 is here. Bright looking morning. Mvua pengine itakuja baadaye, but as of now. Hakuna mvua mahali tuko. Karibu sana Morning Cafe.
Kulikuwa na kama nyunyu kidogo.
Hawa yule kitabu. Karibu sana, this is a Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Ndimuli. How hot is the coffee where you are?
And I'm usually Stanley Nyerungiti. It's a terrific Tuesday, Biashara Tuesday. Later on we discuss matters. It's about 41 days to the end of June 30th. That is one of those days that Kenyans start African timing, kukimbizana na kufile taxes. Have you filed your taxes? We'll be getting into that conversation Biashara Tuesday at around 8 a.m. Stick around for that.
Okay, of course we'll be looking at President William Ruto's US visit today being the second day. But before that, let's take a look at what the headlines are talking about today. And we start off with the Daily Nation, where to get the best paying jobs. That's a big headline there. Accommodation and food service, transport and financial sectors are the top employers. Now this is about performance, multilateral bodies and non-governmental organizations. They talk about different areas of the economy that are offering the best jobs.
And quite sad, media isn't really reflecting.
No, it's not. It's never... well,
even digital media.
Well, it's not that good. Even content creation doesn't feature.
Content creation should be really actually here.
Other stories making it to the front page, of course, the death of Ibrahim Raisi, president of Iran, and that ICC warrant of arrest against Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister.
Onto the Standard, Gachagua allies to oppose Ruto tax proposals. The Deputy President is back on a bang on the dailies.
Okay, kwenye Taifa Leo, vuta ni kuvute Kenya Kwanza. MPs are differing on a lot of things. State of the economy, that's the People Daily.
Talk about how the national wealth grew has really grown. Ruto gets 3 billion cash shillings from Coca-Cola for plant upgrade. That we'll actually be giving you the whole details on his visit to US and his itinerary for today into Tanzania.
Utata ajali ya Raisi wa Iran. Tanzanians have given this story a lot of prominence on their dailies. This is the Mwananchi. It's a big story there on the front page of the Mwananchi in Tanzania. It is also featuring on the front page of the Citizen. Quite some coverage there. But the big headline on the Citizen, $420 million US, gas to liquids fuel facility in the pipeline.
Into Uganda, Makerere takes 1,500 on government sponsorship. There's actually a student in Uganda who got quite a number of scholarships abroad. Okay. So many colleges really wanted him.
Matters education.
Yes.
Taxi driver confesses to killing 5 women. That's the front page of the New Vision inUganda.
Wow.
Wow. Those are the big headlines across the region. So let's now focus on the state visit by President William Ruto to the United States.
And I think it would also be prudent, even before we even take a look at his speeches, also just even highlighting what he's going to be really doing today on Tuesday. So today we do expect, we had seen that whole highlight of Coca-Cola. So today we do expect President William Ruto commencing now his second day at Spelman College, where he's going to be discussing the critical role of higher education, really, particularly science and technology. Another bit to take a look at for today, he is going to be visiting Tyler Perry Studios. He's going to be exploring opportunities within the creative economy, highlighting the rapidly growing sector as a potentially major job creator. Another bit to expect for today, the president will then shift attention to trade and investment with a visit to Coca-Cola, where new investment partnerships will be announced. He'll also be launching Vivo's inaugural store in America. Meanwhile, just finally to the whole tail end of today's itinerary, he will be hosted by Mayor Andre Dickens of Atlanta and the Atlanta CEOs Council, who will then host basically president seeking position of Kenya as an important regional manufacturing hub. That is just a nutshell of what to expect in today's bit.
All right, now President William Ruto has maintained that Kenya is leading the multinational support mission to support Haiti. In his words, the head of state said Kenya is called to honor the mission to humanitarianism. Here is his full address at the Carter Presidential Center in Atlanta, which was his first stop soon after he landed in Atlanta for his state visit.
Jason Carter, chair of the center, of the Carter Center Board, Dr. Paige Alexander, CEO, Cheta Center, Dr. Meredith Evans, Director of the Carter Presidential Library and Museum, Congresswoman Kima Williams, thank you very much for welcoming me. Our ambassador from Kenya to the United States, or is it the United States to Kenya, Ambassador Meg Whitman. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is indeed a great privilege for me to be here today at this iconic center, a hub of noble endeavors and a fitting tribute to the global legacy of a distinguished American leader and humanitarian. I thank the leadership of this center for hosting and providing me with a unique opportunity to honor an exemplary American whose commitment to leadership, governance, democracy, and human welfare has made him a respected global citizen. His political career may have concluded, but his influence as a leader endures. As President Jimmy Carter turns 100 years this October, I wish him good health and happiness. My visit here reminds me of the first state visit by a Kenyan leader to the US in the 1980s, when President Carter invited President Moi to America. President Carter continues his engagement with Kenya through his work at this center, where he remains a respected global advocate, especially for victims of overlooked conflict and humanitarian crisis. President Carter and his legacy and the efforts of this center are vividly alive in Kenya. In 1994, for example, with substantial support from the center, Kenya became one of the first countries to stop the transmission of guinea worm disease. And we thank this center immensely. Today, Kenya stands as a more confident democracy, thanks in part to President Carter's personal support and the center's institutional contribution. This center is founded on a deep commitment to human rights and alleviation of human suffering. Its impactful work has improved millions of lives worldwide by contributing to conflict resolution, promoting democracy, democratic norms, building an accountable institutions, and supporting disease prevention. The commitment of this center reflects our own values and governance principles, highlighting the common heritage that the United States and Kenya in our strategic partnership of shared objectives centered on human well-being, security, and dignity. The historic events which define the essential character of Kenya and the United States of America as proud, free, and democratic nations, though centuries apart, are very identical. Kenya is as good as the United States. At the height of Kenya's liberation struggle, the US, a global democratic giant, became a natural ally of our freedom fighters. Our independence benefited from the loyal support of celebrated American progressive leaders and iconic civil rights champions. The legacy of this early partnership was evident in the contribution of American jurist Thurgood Marshall, who hopefully I will see the place of his remains tomorrow, who helped in the writing of our first constitution and continues to define our political culture of debate, negotiations, and compromise, helping us navigate challenges and make necessary progress as a country. This collaboration also sowed the mustard seed of people-to-people collaboration in the form of the historic Student Airlift Program, initiated by President J.F. Kennedy, a program which enabled hundreds of young Kenyans to pursue higher education in US colleges and universities, equipping our new independent nation with a cadre of well-educated and skilled leaders. These strategic and thoughtful interventions reflected our shared values and empowered our young nation to stand confidently on its own and forge a path that we celebrate even today. Let me say this. Tomorrow, we expand this historic collaboration with 5 Kenyan universities signing a student exchange program with their American counterparts to celebrate our shared progress and broaden the knowledge horizon and experience of both Kenyan and American students. We have never looked back, neither in our determined quest to implement ambitious development programs, nor in our commitment to our partnership. We continue on a path of an open society, strongly committed to greater accountability and transparency, with robust engagement of civil society organizations who serve as a catalyst for societal progress, amplifying the voice of the people and ensuring their active participation in governance. As a fundamental component and watchdog of our civic space, the media in Kenya, both national and international, ensures that our informed citizenry is the backbone of our democracy, driving development and supporting open government. Recognizing that accountability and integrity are essential for enhancing democratic governance, the fight against corruption is a fundamental imperative. With the support of our partners, we continue to strengthen our entire criminal justice system, including investigations, prosecutions, and judicial processes. We are also enhancing all capabilities, human, financial, operational, and technical, including hiring a record 46 judges in the last 1.5 years. It is crucial to view these developments as the natural consequences of our constitutional framework, which establishes a representative democracy, mandates the separation of powers, enforces checks and balances, and prevents any single branch from acquiring absolute power. Additionally, it enshrines fundamental rights and freedoms, empowers citizens to actively participate in processes that affect their interests, and safeguards the freedom of expression and assembly. Our Constitution also safeguards equality, inclusion, and affirmative action for women, the marginalized, and minorities. It requires the state to support citizens in realizing their full potential and transforms expectations around social services and attendant opportunities into fundamental rights, while demanding a responsive and accountable government as both a state obligation and also a citizen's right. Since the people of Kenya are the ultimate holders of all sovereign power, leaders like myself and many seated here have an irrevocable covenant to return to the ballot every 5 years, to renew their social contract with the citizens. We celebrate the right of every Kenyan to choose their political representatives and participate in public decisions as a fundamental principle of democratic governance. In fact, I'll give you an example. In the last election, it was particularly very interesting. There was a narrative that had been weaved that the elections will be decided by something called the deep state and the system. But believe you me, if the deep state was to decide or the system was to decide, a different person would be standing before you today as President of Kenya. It is the people of Kenya who decided. Over time, our Election Management Commission has gained significant capacity and legitimacy as an impartial arbiter, steadily building voter confidence. Transparent election processes, including the use of electronic systems for voter registration, election validation, and results transmission, ensure the integrity of our elections, making every vote count and every voice to be heard. We are ready to share our experiences in this space, even with the United States. To further ensure electoral integrity A comprehensive and predictable constitutional framework exists for election dispute resolution. Notably, the Supreme Court has resolved presidential election disputes 4 times, including annulment of the 2017 election, in which I was a candidate. I tell you, it's not good when your election is annulled, but it is democracy, and we choose to respect. It is quite fitting that I delved into a detailed examination of the evolution of our country's electoral institutions and democratic credentials, given that 2024 is an unprecedented year for democracy. This year, nearly 2 billion voters in 90 countries, including the United States and 18 African nations, will go to the polls. Importantly, this robust democratic engagement counters a growing, not so true wave of narrow nationalism, intolerance, targeting of minorities, violent political contests, and other anti-democratic tendencies. In several countries, we have seen unconstitutional changes of government that have threatened democratic gains. Consequently, this is a crucial time for reflecting on the need to strengthen democracy worldwide. Many countries are in economic and debt distress occasioned by climate change and compounded by an unjust international financial architecture and also an imperfect multilateralism. We now run the escalating risk of democracy and free market being associated with poverty and suffering, lending credence to the widespread lamentation that democracy is or has been on the retreat in many parts of the world, including Africa. Later this week, I will have the privilege to engage with members of the American Congress, and I'm happy one of them is here, to make a case for many countries in Africa, including Kenya, seeking a just international financial architecture that will afford every developing country concessionary development financing to support our economies, build resilience against the effects of climate change, drive our belief in free market economy, and energize our democratic enterprise. Kenya hosted the World Bank's IDA 21 Replacement Summit 3 weeks ago, bringing together the African continent and the World Bank to urge our development partners, led by our friends, the United States of America, to enhance their contribution to the concessional window of the World Bank so that we can support developing countries. I believe the United States of America has a historic opportunity to lead the free world in dealing with this economic situation and give meaning to democracy and free market economy worldwide, including in Kenya and many other developing countries. Needless to say, it is a busy period for the GOtv Center, and I'm deeply grateful to Dr. Paige, Alexander, and her team for their effort and patience in organizing this event for me. As we strengthen our democratic values, we recognize their alignment with shared aspirations of humanity. Like the United States, we believe that the fulfillment of Kenya's destiny is inseparably intertwined with the overall well-being of humanity. In this context, Kenya has been and will continue to be a leader in the search for sustainable solutions to regional and global challenges. The war in Ukraine, the conflict in the Middle East, the fighting in Sudan, South Sudan, Eastern DRC, the Sahel, and terrorism in Somalia all demand greater collaboration and strategic global leadership. Kenya is leading the institutional reform of the African Union to enhance its role in economic development, peace and security, and stability across Africa, and foster infrastructure development. the United States of America has a significant opportunity to collaborate with Kenya and the broader African continent in building the institutional capabilities necessary for economic prosperity, peace and security for the 1.4 billion people living in Africa. Kenya has always stood as a pillar of shared values, offering refuge and hope to many fleeing persecution and humanitarian crisis. Through strong partnership with countries like the US, we are actively fighting global terrorism, violent extremism, and transnational crimes such as piracy, human trafficking, and drug trafficking, significantly contributing to a safer and freer world. As the climate crisis poses an existential threat to all life on Earth, Kenya has taken a leading role in defining this challenge and mobilizing a global response that matches the scale and urgency needed to restore ecological balance and secure our planet. Finally, we are at the forefront of forging regional and global cooperation, which has expanded our role in pursuing sustainable peace, both regionally and internationally. Since independence, Kenya has participated in 49 peace support missions worldwide. Following UN Security Council Resolution 2699 of 2023, we are leading the multinational security support mission, driven by our firm belief that the responsibility to support Haiti lies with all nations and peoples who value self-determination, freedom, peace, and democracy. The enduring legacy of President Jimmy Carter illustrates the profound impact an individual can have on history and the advancement of democracy and justice. Reflecting on President Carter's commitment to a freer, safer, healthier, and more just world, we are called to honor his contribution to humanitarianism and solidarity, and his steadfast advocacy for the well-being of individuals and the creation of inclusive, equitable, and just societies. In today's complex global landscape, it is crucial to reaffirm and resolutely uphold timeless principles of democracy and freedom. We look forward to enhancing our partnership with the United States of America and the Carter Center to build a stronger Kenya. For this reason, I anticipate a continued and expanded partnership with the Carter Center to strengthen our democracy, enhance our capabilities in ensuring human security, and foster prosperity among all peoples. I thank you.
President William Ruto, at his very first engagement of his 4-day state visit to the United States, he was speaking at the Carter Center, where he talked about democratic values and anti-corruption efforts by his government. It is indeed a packed itinerary for the president, whose 4-day state visit highlight will be bilateral talks with his counterpart from the US, President Joe Biden. And we'll keep on bringing you more details from the President William Ruto's state visit to the United States as we continue with this show. But for now, time for us to take a look at the state of the nation, and one of my panelists is already in studio. Joyce Wamahio, economic and governance expert. It's good to have you in studio. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
A lot to talk about, including the Kenya National Bureau of Standards Economic Survey for 2024.
True.
But we'll be talking about that and a lot more after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. Time for us to take a look at the state of the nation. Of course, the big story that we're following right now is President William Ruto's state visit to the United States. The first for an African leader in a very long time, and definitely something that attracts attention across board. And it's going to be a very busy itinerary. Yesterday, the president made his very first engagement at the President John Carter Presidential Center, where he made his very first speech. A number of things he is expected to do. Of course, the highlight will be bilateral talks with President Joe Biden. Before that meeting, Ruto will visit the Ebenezer Baptist Church to honor the civil rights struggle. He is also expected to visit the Center for Disease Control headquarters, where key announcements, including a new CDC-KEMRI partnership, will be announced. Later, the President and the First Lady will be hosted by Kenyans living in Atlanta, highlighting the diaspora's role in national transformation. He's also expected to visit the Tyler Perry Studios for lovers of movies by Tyler Perry. This is going to be a highlight. And it should be noted that among his entourage, the President has also gone with quite a number of Kenyan film producers and other content creators. I know for one that I think Butita is there. So very interesting. He will also visit the Coca-Cola to announce new investment partnerships and also launch Vivo's inaugural store in America, which is an entrepreneurship by a Kenyan woman. So yes, quite a packed itinerary for the president. Here in studio, I'll introduce Joyce Wamahiu, economist and governance expert, and now joining the panel, Zach Kinothia, former Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Education. Karibu sana Bwana Kinothia. Thank you. We start with that visit by the President to the United States. Many people probably downplayed it, but you can see the kind of coverage it is receiving. It is definitely something big by any standards for an African leader to secure a state visit, not just an official visit, but a state visit to the United States. Wamahiu, what do you expect that there could be anything for Kenya from this visit?
I give a lot of accolades to the organizers behind the scene, because this is not an ordinary visit. This is a well-planned visit that is out to capture holistically so much for all persons involved, be it Kenyans, as Wajiko themselves, be it the attendees of that visit, be it the Americans themselves, be it the bilateral talks between Kenya and USA. So to me, it's a wise move. I love the way it has been brought out very early in the year for the leadership of Kenya Kwanza. Yet they've hit it very, very big. Why not for the small show that, for the small hindrance that came in on Sunday because of the jet that went down on the Iranian president. But to me, this is the best timing. I would not want to preempt what will be discussed, but looking at the itinerary, what is on the table, I think I would have missed to be on that plane. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay.
Bwana Kinothia, what is your assessment? Do you think there's anything that portends positive things for Kenya from this visit?
And thank you for that question. Maybe we should not discuss things in isolation. This White House American visit must be discussed and understood by Kenyans in the context of other visits that the president has made in powerful economies in the world, including Germany. He has been hosted by the president of Germany and the Chancellor, Olaf Scholz. He's been hosted by the French president and the Prime Minister, Emmanuel Macron, the president. He's been hosted by China in a state visit, this Xi Jinping.
Yes.
He's been hosted in Russia, and has hosted Russian high delegation here. Mm-hmm. The president has virtually been hosted by the West. The global North has been very kind to him. Mm-hmm. What is there to show? So that we are not seen to be discussing American visit by preempting it as a charade, or of no consequence to Kenyan. I would want time to be the determinant. But what has happened before, we haven't seen anything. The president has gone to Germany, made far-reaching pronouncements of he has secured employment for 350,000 people. They never came to naught. We have seen the president going to France, mentioning great things, including saying that we are going to revive Kimwarel dams, Arol and Kimwarel dams. They have not happened. The president virtually hoping in United Kingdom, our former colony. There has not actually been nothing. And when I say there has been nothing, I mean we are still suffering the same problems he promised he would sort, including healthcare. Today as we talk in Dumuli, the healthcare is in shutters. Vaccines are not available. Yet, vaccines are produced in Germany. Germany is one of the best producers of vaccines. We don't have them here today. What partnerships has the president been able to secure for Kenya in 1 year?
They've listed there is his visit to the Center for Disease Control, and they're talking about a possible partnership.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I would be very unfair to President Ruto to determine what will come out in the American visit. That's why I'm saying in the historical context, in the recent history that we are living, all of us, we have not seen anything. It's just been
many visits.
Despite spending billions of taxpayers' money flying, we haven't seen anything. We are not saying the president should not go, but we are saying Kibaki only made one visit outside the country in 2008 to 2012. Yet, we have everything to show for this country. This president, being hosted in America, President William Ruto, must be an enigmatic and pragmatic Kenyan president who knows that state visits do not come with nothing. He cannot just be hosted. There must be a reason why he's hosted in White House. Americans do not just host people. Including their own colleagues in the West. America does not just host unless there is a critical gain that America is interested in the country they are hosting. The last president to be hosted in Africa was John Kufuor, the Ghanaian president. He was hosted about 10 years ago in America, and all of us know, without preempting things here, why he was hosted. Today, Ghana is in economic shambles. They have been bedridden by debt from IMF and World Bank. Today, we are being remote controlled by International Monetary Fund. We are being controlled by World Bank, including them telling the president where to tax. They don't have any qualms on political qualification. So what I am saying here is that what the president is doing in America remains to be seen with time. I would be very unfair if I said I'll pour cold water on it, because it has not happened. Now, he's just being taken out. But for what has happened, I mentioned here, what has happened, I can analyze. He has already gone to President Jimmy Carter Library. He has been he has gone to, I don't know whether he has gone or he's going today to Martin Luther King Jr.'s memorial. I have been to Martin Luther King Jr.'s mall, or what they are calling a memorial. Martin Luther King is a global figure for agitation for human rights, basic human rights, civil rights, including expansion of economic rights to the downtrodden. And Martin Luther King, in one of his speeches called "Where Do We Go From Here" in America, he was saying the Negroes were given far-reaching rights by Proclamation Charter in 1872, but they were never given the land they were working as slaves by the slave owners. So essentially, you have given the Negro, the black, the shoes, and told them to tie those laces and lift themselves up. When the president leaves that mall, I would want to urge him to remember that the poor in this country, who requires equal treatment by the rich, should be remembered the way Martin Luther King prioritized them. Today, we cannot be taxing the poor, motor vehicle tax, and then cushion the rich against paying the same. Because when you cap it 100, you say a man with 50 million shillings Range Rover will pay the same with a lady working in a bank in a Harrier of 4.1 million shillings. There is no equity for the poor. So when the president goes there, he must come with those salient
There's a bigger debate about East versus West. And Kenya would appear to be caught in between. President appears to be a darling of both, and he's being pulled either side. Does he go towards China's way, now the United States? For him to be granted a state visit to the United States, it could be a bigger play in as far as that East versus West competition, don't you think?
I take another diversion of thinking in a different school of thought. When you stay in an area, you do not literally choose your neighbors. What you do, you run to coexist with your neighbors. And it entails a lot of diplomacy, human face, spiritual intervention, economic intervention, moral intervention, democratic intervention, etc. So it's a holistic approach. So when you're dealing with vested interest, these are countries literally with the different democracies, with the different principles. I think you need to work soft. You want to support the Israelites. You also want to support the Hamas. Yet both of these two countries are fighting. You want to deal with Russia, and you also want to deal with Ukraine. Because in essence, you do not want to play their games. You want to earn the benefit of being afraid of Idi Muli and afraid of being Zak Kenodia. So in essence, it calls for a lot of wisdom. How you manage these visits, how you manage the benefits and the gains arising out of these visits. Because we cannot restrict this president to these several countries. We need literally to open up this country into several vested interests. Traders in this country derive and go for their goods, products and services from different countries. Some will visit the USA in terms of the agriculture. Others will visit Japan because of the technology. Others will visit China. Others will go to India. So in essence, when this country needs to drive between the West, the East, the North, and the South, in essence, it's a very delicate balancing act because you need to deal with the vested interest of Wajiko. Because Wajiko is not derived from one community, one business interest, one business sector, one sector of thinking, one school of thought. Wajiko is derived as a holistic Kenyan. And this holistic Kenyan, when you saw the oath of leading this country, you saw the oath of taking care of Wajiko's vested interest, including the East and the West. When you visit Tanzania, in essence, you must read to the terms of the Tanzanian, the bilateral agreements that I will have between these two countries. Perhaps Tanzania and DRC are fighting. Again, how do you balance between the two? So to me, it is not only wisdom, it is spiritual because in essence, Zak and the Dimuli could be fighting. But in essence, I need to benefit out of the two.
The president has already come under a lot of criticism, especially in matters diplomacy, that there are instances where he's been seen to falter here and there. It was among the first errors he made as president.
True. Yeah.
But he seems to be getting to his own now. He seems to be getting the balance correctly.
He's getting his foot right. Early in the year, early in the last year, in the African state alone, he had about 7 fights. You're fighting the Sudan, you're fighting DRC, you're fighting everywhere.
Even Uganda.
Even Tanzania. Yeah. When you're in leadership and you're young and you want to assert your authority, both internally and externally, of course you must step in several toes so that you can know how to rearrange yourself with these toes. If you do not step on those toes, then you'll never know when you've overstepped your boundaries. So in essence, it entailed overstepping into people's toes, overstepping in Kaguta Museveni's toes in terms of petroleum, so that again, these guys can come on the table and discuss, yes, now you had overstepped my mandate, now Arawas now come back to the table. Let us now renegotiate these arrangements. Okay. If we allow the status quo arrangements for status quo to be maintained, some of them are detrimental to this leadership. Some of them are beneficial to this leadership. So again, scatter everything so that now you can rearrange.
Start rebuilding.
Start rebuilding because you cannot go historically on what our forefathers did. You have a continuation on what our forefathers did.
And it was interesting that just before President Ruto left for the state visit to the US, he hosted President Yoweri Museveni on a state visit to Kenya.
Yes.
That could mean a lot in terms of regional diplomacy, that he's now really, as Joyce says, rebuilding. And he seems to be getting his footing now, especially on matters diplomacy. Is that, do you agree with that assessment?
First of all, I want to agree with Joyce. I wanted to call you Madam. I want to agree with Madam that a friend to all is a friend to none. If you are a friend to the East, and you're a friend to the West, and you're a friend to the entire African continent, you're a friend to the entire Middle East, then you are useful to none. And in the end, you'll be isolated by all. But because America cannot afford Kenya being a strategic entrance to African continent, to just be loitering and lingering out there. Now you're bringing me close to what I think why Ruto has been summoned in what they're christening state visit. America has called him to discipline him. And in due course, you will see it. Because America cannot be fighting a war in Ukraine and then he is all over trying to befriend Russia. America cannot be fighting war in Gaza and then he's there condemning Israel. America cannot be fighting war in Sudan and then he's there hosting the belligerent party, one of the parties fighting there. He was here, hosted here by the president. So this is essentially an errant kid who has no problem with the parents, but who has no understanding of how a parent is important. Sometimes he's disciplined by being called on a high table so that he's told the manners of behavior. Can I qualify my statement and say that President Ruto is the only president in the league of the 5 that we have had since independence who is the most clueless on Kenya's diplomatic position. Kenya has always been, first in the independence, a non-aligned. We are a non-aligned. Our strategic diplomatic strategy is that we are non-aligned. A non-aligned country does not condemn the East and does not quote the West. It does not prioritize the West over the East because we have nothing. We have no mature industries. We do not have minerals that we can dangle in the global realm. We must stay with a friend is what the Bible calls a good neighbor. That Jesus was asked by his disciples someday, who is a good neighbor? He did not tell them it was Joyce or it was Indimuli. He told them, a man was coming from Samaria, going to Jericho, and the rest is history. So those people who came to save that man, put him in an inn, fed him, is a good neighbor. So neighbor is not a position of geography. Geographical. Neighbor is a position of need. When you are in need, who comes to you? Kenya has always been a country that has attracted all because of its non-aligned movement until he came in. China has come and built for us a railway, has come and introduced to us technology that the West has hitherto been hiding from African states and gave us highways. This is a friend. And China comes and say, the West has conquered Africa before by guns and boots. We are coming to you with aid and with friendship. So this is what we must do together. Let us do trade, as she has said, and let us also give you aid where necessary. Instead of saying, if you don't align with us, we bring our boots to the ground. I mean, this has been the West strategy since time immemorial. But now this is Chinese. Let me put it this way before you invite James on this matter. Museveni was not invited in Kenya for state visit because we were benefiting. He was benefiting. The deals he cut are so useful to Uganda, not useful to us. So essentially, it may have been a prop by the East to host Museveni so that we can extend the railway from Naivasha to Kampala. Whom does it serve? This is an extension of the Belt and Silk Road that Chinese has been pursuing.
That competition, yes, is indeed alive, and Kenyans can see it with the extension of the SGR to Uganda. But then again, this other side, we are seeing a very influential individual in the person of the U.S. ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman. And historically, most U.S. ambassadors to Kenya have been very influential in different matters, politics, economy, and the like. What can you say? What is your assessment about the kind of moves that this ambassador is making? They seem to be working. She seems to be moving a lot.
She's operating like an earthquake or a thunderbolt that within a span of several months, Unlike her predecessors, you know, we had one who was good in organizing for Madamano in the streets.
Smith himself.
Without
Smith himself. The rogue ambassador.
Yeah, the rogue ambassador. Now this one looks like she's a business ambassador. Smearing opportunities where others have not smelled that opportunity. Bullying people where others have not been bullied. And apparently she's doing it at the table because you cannot physically see her.
She's doing it with a smile.
She's doing it with not only with a smile, you know, very minimal. But I'm uncomfortable with that kind of way of operation. The way she's operating is very suspicious. My brother has said here that we do not want to preempt the discussion. We do not want even to preempt the need for, the gains that will be derived from that visit. But why do we need America? Why hasn't Kaguta Museveni, who is an old man in politics, who is 8 in essence in terms of years, why hasn't the ambassador in Uganda organized for a visit for a general? Mm-hmm. You know where Zachary comes from. When the old men are seated, they can see ahead of where Idimuli can see when he's crept on that first floor of KRA. So I'm again uncomfortable with her visions, and I'm not a prophet of doom. I've never been one, but I see over-ambitious. I see a lot of twisting also, because again, most of these agreements that are signed are never brought to the fore. What we'll only see will be only statements will be read. That we've signed agreements with makers of this good wash. We've signed agreements with makers of HP. But the terms of those agreements are not brought to the fore. If Idimuri was pushed to sign that agreement, again, it's not privy. Look at what happened to the late President Raisi. All those MOUs. Who will articulate and execute those MOUs? We saw some Iranians who are celebrating his death. Lord forbid. Look at Haiti again. Could the president of this country been summoned because of the Haiti mission? You know, these are some of the issues that Kenyans want to read. And if you don't provide answers for these unasked questions, you know, you preempt that discussion.
Okay.
Have we gone there because of there's a fact check between Haiti, USA, and Kenya? So there are a lot of so many vested interests, so many questions that have not been dealt with, so many questions that are lying under the table. And if they are not addressed, Kenyans will pour cold water on this great visit. Okay.
Yes. As Joyce says, there's a lot that could be behind the curtains. But again, you see this figure of this ambassador hovering all over. You see you see her visiting even Raila Odinga at home. And one may wonder what kind of influence she has. And the president, while making his very first address at the Jimmy Carter Center, while introducing Meg Whitman, he joked that he first said Kenya's ambassador to the US, or is it the US ambassador to Kenya? It means, and it says a lot. It was not a mistake. It was intentional.
It's a heavy statement.
It says a lot about what role this ambassador plays, even in Kenya's diplomacy across the globe.
Anyway, let me put it this way. I am so proud of my wife today, so proud of my mother. I'm so proud of my daughters. I'm so proud of her and every Kenyan woman here, because by default, Kenya's 5th president is a woman. It's been a long time. Women have been craving and clamoring for a woman president.
Are you saying she is the president?
That's what I'm saying. And women should celebrate that the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya is a billionaire from Texas,
Isn't that
California.
A bit extreme?
Margaret Meg Whitman. If anybody has any doubt about it, they should just listen to what you asked me before I commented, that she's all over, hovering from Raila
politics
to President William Ruto, to NGOs, to every ounce of the Kenyan system. She's there. And if you thought that this is a small thing, you should consider the decisions that White House State House is making every single day, everything. The President of the Republic of Kenya meets the people she decide. You saw her the other day being hosted by first years.
Our president is William Ruto.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's what I'm saying now to be home. He meets the people she wants. And you saw first years from Harvard University.
Yes.
Some first years.
Last week.
Yeah. Who has better grasp of economics than our economist in government now?
India.
Yeah, coming to ask the questions that had been well orchestrated by the fifth president of Kenya, Ambassador Meg Whitman. And I want to put it this way. It is unfortunate, my brother, even if I put it that lightly.
But she's not the first influential ambassador from the US to Kenya. We've just talked about the Rogue Ambassador.
Yeah, the Rogue Ambassador.
We've talked about so many others. Prudence Bushnell.
Yes.
They've all been very influential.
Yes.
To a point where they've acted even presidents in Kenya.
And that's good. Why have they been influential before? Their influence have been at loggerheads, if you remember, from Hemingstone, all the way to Randburger. All of these people have been influential because they have been at cross purpose with Kenyan leadership. This one is not at cross purpose with Kenyan leadership. Ambassador Meg Whitman has no corruption strategy on Kenya. Remember, other ambassadors have been pushing for prudent use of resources. But it seems that the current one has given Ruto a carpet blank to do as he would want, without suffering the consequences that other president and the administration have suffered from White House. That if you do this, we will do this. This president is not being ruled by sanctions. Our president is not being controlled by sanctions. Our president is not being guided by sanctions. Because, let's be honest, America is a big country. America is influential in every corner of this world.
It would be beneficial for any president from any other country to align themselves with America.
At what cost?
It is easier.
At what cost? At what cost? Because the cost of your country is much more supreme than the interest of other nations coming in here. The European ambassadors, all of them operate under an auspice of European ambassadors, and they have a united front. But they are very careful because they say, even if you must forward interests for the country sending you to the host, you must also consider the character, the behavior, the policies, and the standing of the president you are doing deals with. Fortunately for America, Ambassador Whitman is totally commercial. Fortunately for the American companies, they have an ambassador at large selling their interests. To Ambassador Whitman, it's all about American companies. It's all about minerals that can be used or passed through Kenya for the benefit of America. For Ambassador Whitman, it does not matter that Ruto's government is wasteful. It does not matter that majority of his cabinet secretaries are corrupt to the death. It does not matter that the president is prevailing an administration that is impoverishing Kenyan day by day. But she's good for her country. By the way, I want to put it that way. The fifth president of America, the fifth president of Kenya is very useful to America.
The fifth president of Kenya, for clarity's sake, is Dr. William Ruto, and Meg Whitman is the U.S. ambassador to Kenya. Let's take one more update from the U.S. state visit by President William Ruto. He's set to visit the Center for Disease Control, and we do have an update on that. Oh yes, and the one we're taking now is his visit to the Martin Luther King Center, which was his second engagement after landing in Atlanta, Georgia.
We associate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as the father of civil rights movement, not just in America, but globally. In the statement I just made, I refer to civil rights movement leaders like Dr. King, who inspired our own independent leaders who eventually brought independence to our country. Dr. King unified races, religions, continents in the belief in democracy, freedom, and justice. Great heritage civil rights movement and believe that all men are born and are equal. So thank you very much for sitting us here. We are immensely grateful and we are touched by what we have seen and inspired by the work of this institution. As I told you, it is a case that those of us who believe, like Dr. King and the American people do, in freedom and democracy, can build on this legacy by making sure that this history is shared by generations that will come after us. And Kenya and myself want to do something with this institution to further that. So thank you.
And thank you and Her Excellency for being here today at the MLK Center, which is the official living memorial to the life, work, and legacy of my father. As many of you know, my father worked very hard to try to eradicate triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism globally. We didn't get a chance, obviously, to see the fulfillment of that, and it now falls to us. So my mother created this institution as a beacon of hope, first and foremost, but also as an epicenter where people can learn not just about the history, but the nonviolent philosophy and methodology that my father utilized to change much of the South, the people who work with him, and to inspire future generations to use nonviolence in their quest for freedom, justice, and equality. And so we educate and train from the youngest to the oldest in that philosophy and methodology that he taught not just for social justice, but as a lifestyle. We've launched online a Nonviolence 365 for everybody across the world. It's been translated into 6 languages. People can go at their own pace and know the power and how to use it in their movements to create democracy, to preserve democracy, and to create the pathway to the beloved community, because he taught it as the pathway to the beloved community. So we thank you for being here today. We're hoping that we can work together and spread this important teaching for our world. As he said in his Nobel Peace Prize lecture, I suggest that the philosophy and strategy of nonviolence immediately become a subject of study and serious experimentation in every field of human conflict, by no means excluding relations between nations. And if there's anything we desperately need now, we need Dr. King's nonviolence, Kenyan nonviolence, which we call Nonviolence 365, because when it's in us, then we can begin to create the world that we all want to see, which we believe is the beloved community. So thank you again for being with us. Thank you, Ms. Ambassador. Thank you as well. And God bless each and every one.
All right, President William Ruto speaking there at the Martin Luther King Center in Atlanta. And of course, we'll be bringing you more details, more updates from the US. Reporter George Maringa is there and is updating us up to the minute. He is among those who are in President William Ruto's entourage during his 4-day state visit, which started yesterday. And of course, among the highlights is that the president is expected to hold bilateral talks with his American counterpart, Joe Biden, later this week, as well as visit various places, including the Tyler Perry Center. I'm still in studio with Zach Kinothia and Joyce Omahio, and I want us to move to another discussion now back home. Yesterday, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics released the Economic Survey 2024, and it shows economy looks all rosy, except the fact that money is not in Mwananchi's pocket. That's a headline on the front page of the Standard. Unfortunately, we do not have the hard copies. I think the weather has messed up our rider, but we'll be getting there. The Daily Nation has chosen to go with a different outlook, looking at where to get the jobs, the best paying jobs, still coming from that economic survey. And it says, interestingly, that agriculture and the real estate are not doing so well. Are the least rewarding in as far as being employers. Let me see what else On the Business Daily, real wages shrink for the 4th consecutive year. That's a Business Daily. And on the, I think we have the People Daily. Yes, People Daily went with the state of the economy. And it says the national wealth grew by 5.9% in 2023, with informal sector yielding 85% of jobs. But experts warn figures may have since changed, probably for worse. From an economic standpoint, many Kenyans may not understand how an economic survey may say we are doing well while we are not feeling it. What could be the disconnect?
There are several factors that have been put to play. This country has not stagnated, much as we are not seeing what he promised, what the president promised in 2022, vis-a-vis the economic survey that was done. We are getting a different picture altogether. Up to 14th of May, 29 international companies had closed the shop here in Kenya. And this means something else. The CS Treasury tells us that the economy has grown by, say, a margin of 5%. I'm wondering where we are reading from and where we are coming from. Why? Kenya needs to produce product and services. Because when we produce product and services, then payment of taxes becomes quite easy. Now, when we do not produce product and services, these companies are stagnating and closing shop. These companies are not paying corporate tax. Then where do we derive our taxes from? Look at the Finance Bill 2024. So in essence, this country is not growing. It is not stagnating, but it's going backward.
Yet the National Bureau of Statistics is not known to offer data that is off. This is data that even the government uses. The intention is not propaganda or public relations. It should be data that is usable by government, state departments. There would be no need for the KNBS to come out and give a report that is inaccurate. But there seems to be something that is not adding up. We're talking about economic growth at a time when everyone, and you just mentioned correctly, companies are moving out of this space. Kenyans are feeling poorer every single day.
Idimuri, at times as a country, people have refused to bite the bullet.
Yes. And just before you go on, I'd like to, because I think we are misleading our viewers with the tagline down there. We're talking about the economic survey of 2024 now. We'll be back to President Ruto'S visit later. Yes.
Kenyans are, these institutions will always deal with the historical figures. There were figures that were predetermined in year 2021, 21-22, and 22-23. So in essence, it's growing from a historical perspective. At this historical perspective, some of it may not be privy to what's happening on the ground. Where I come from in Kiabur now, people did not harvest maize and beans. Why? The fake issue of the fake fertilizer and the fake seeds jeopardized the agricultural sector. So in essence, when you tell Kenyans that agriculture, the economy has moved, then Idimuri, you are painting a different picture. Even if the economy has moved, it has moved on small margins, not even equal to 5%. Today, the calls to internal calls from one Kora to the other, from one service to provider, has gone up. The cost of sugar has stagnated at about 120, or even up to 150. Is that what you're calling economic growth? Moving from one country to the other in terms of expenses again high. So in essence, to me, the authors of that document erred because they are not reflecting on the true position of the ground. They are reflecting on percentages that have been derived. How do you arrive at those percentages? You give up a margin of about 1.5% of previously what was given. If you look at what happened previously in the past, it was about 4. So in essence, you know, again, the president is in the US. On the eve of his visit, you must produce some indicators of some economic growth.
Okay.
Are you getting it, Idimudi? So you cannot tell the international world that Kenya's economy has not grown by 1.5%. You must paint a picture. But in essence, when you go to the ground, Idimudi, things are very different.
So probably it's not that the KNBS data is wrong, it's only that how it is communicated is skewed towards one line of communication.
True.
Kinodhia.
Actually, KNBS data is correct. Okay? And it is important to put it that way. It is data, is research, data, statistics based. It is not politics, and it is not a perception the way we would want. That is correct. We must also come to appreciate that our institutions, which especially have not been reached by politicians and state crafters, functions in a better manner. Let me put it this way. Kikuyus, where I can speak authoritatively, understand the economy in terms of money in the pocket, in terms of assets that one acquire. So it is not unusual to meet a Kikuyu who has gotten some good money saying, economy ni riaga. Economy is good. You'll hear them say so. But remember, economy is not the same in the eyes of the state as is in the eyes of the common man. The common man cannot understand what is an economic growth. To the common man, economy is understood in the indicators she has put here, economic development. Can we see things around? The indicators of economic growth are far-reaching. Things that perhaps even us here could be beyond. Because this is about bringing in the balance of payment, the balance of trade, the flow and inflows and outflows of our money, payments of loans, both local, banks posting, it's a whole lot of bulky data that Kenya National Bureau of Statistics will study, isolate, and then analyze and present. But economic growth is simple. Can we see things happening in the ground? Do we have jobs being created or not? The answer is always simple. What the eyes of the citizen consider as economic growth is not necessarily economic growth. And what they consider as economic development, the survey that is economic based cannot interpret as. So what must a good country do to have a balance of both? Economic growth sometimes is macro, but economic development is micro. What is there in the pocket of the people? This, by the way, if you go in the villages with this kind of result and say, my name is Freddy Dumuli, I would want to tell you that economic growth, you will not come with any teeth. Because the people you are telling are impoverished every day. They have no money. They cannot feel the economic growth. But economic growth is a virtual reality. Economic development is physical development, things that they can see. So what do I say? When we say that, when Kenya National Bureau of Statistics claim that national wealth has grown, at what backdrop? At the backdrop of Eurobond. Remember, the Eurobond tinkered the shilling weakening, the shilling strengthening again, and stabilizing it around, is it now at 135 or something? So nationally, we have been able to forestall economic crumbling by appearing perception-wise that we have paid that loan that was pending. So investors did not fly. There was no capital flight out of that pronouncement from Eurobond payment. But Kenyans have no money. There's a baseline. There's no money. Businesses are closing. Companies are leaving the country. Why? Because there is a very impulsive and punitive taxation policy. Today as we talk, the government of Britain is crying foul because the iron ore is lying in the Mombasa port, having been detained there because the export tax has been introduced by government. They can no longer export it. What is that going to do? It is going to derail what the iron ore was supposed to have done overseas and the income that we are supposed to have gotten, including jobs that people in the port generate out of this. When you bring taxation policies that are punitive, companies start leaving. Local companies here close down. Businesses in Nyamakima, what we usually call Christian SMEs, have been suffering the pinch of Ruto'S draconian and thoughtless taxation policies. So the economy may be growing out of the capital that is being analyzed by the bureau. But the reality of the matter is that people cannot feel it and they cannot see it. But when Uhuru was building roads and infrastructure, he was aware of the danger he was facing, that those are the stimulators. Those are the things, the capital projects stimulate economic growth, but they do not necessarily contribute to economic development. Now, today's foreign minister, Kenya's foreign minister, shamelessly, and as we are campaigning, saying that Wakenya hawakuli barabara. Him and Moses Kuria. Okay. This is what we call economic development. It's true, Wakenya hawakuli barabara. So that's economic development. We cannot see it, sisi kama wananchi. But in terms of economic growth, the country benefit hugely. This railway that you see here, this expressway that you see here, these are some of the things that stimulate economic growth.
The other thing that Kenyans may feel is this issue that the Daily Nation has captured on the front page, the issue of employment. And they say NGOs and organizations such as the World Bank and UN, which are very probably out of reach for many people seeking jobs, remain the dominant sectors, the best paying jobs. Meanwhile, real estate, which is huge in Kenya, and agriculture, which remains the backbone of this economy, are the least rewarding employers. Now, when we encourage the youth to take up agriculture, talk about kazi za mjengo zikiwa mingi, and they're the least employing, the least rewarding. What does that say to the person who's supposed to be enjoying this economy?
It's ironical and bad in faith. When you say the real estate is growing, taxation against the scrap metal, taxation against the products that are used in terms of construction.
Steel.
The steel, the cement. Is it going down or is it going up? The wages that are payable to these craftsmen, does it increase or goes down? The number of companies producing cement, some of them, are they in production or are they below production? In agriculture, who are the consumers of the products that we are growing? Other than say within the upper part of the northern part of the Nakuru-Nairobi highway, the northern part of it, the southern part of it, are they benefiting from agriculture? So I find it not in good taste to say that agriculture. I find it that real estate is affecting growth. We have this, of ambitious, the affordable housing that the president brought on board. Is it in essence operating positively to the benefits of the Kenyans? When you bring up an affordable housing unit next to what Zachary had built initially, he was charging rent in 10,000, and you bring up a huge flat, charging rent at 3,000. What do you expect? Do you expect the returns from the pocket of Zach to be the same 1 year down the line? So in essence, several factors put in place, I still do not feel that there's a benefit to it.
But what risk is there when agriculture, which is still supposed, and they say correctly, is still supposed to be the backbone of this economy, is not well paying? It means that many people will not want to work in that sector. It's no longer attractive. And if I go there and exert myself, it won't be payback. What risk does that present?
During the strategic planning of this country, when they were doing, say, the 2022, say, to 2027, who factored in the benefit of the agriculture? Because, it must have started somewhere. Initially, it has never been agricultural mode for Kenyans to, nobody want to dirty their hands. They would want more to do with the digital platforms when it comes to Butita and company. Nobody, in essence, had prepared Kenyans for the agricultural sector. Today, at least, it's better because persons have now come up with institutions are now roping into the agricultural sector. See what the University of Nairobi did last week, but one, with the upgrading and the value addition on products. Initially, it was never a holistic drive towards improvement of agriculture. Today, at least some companies, some institutions are bringing on board that expertise in terms of improving agriculture. If we were to analyze the impact of agricultural growth based on institutional well-thought strategy to improve on agriculture, this year at least will be better than it was last year. So in essence, it is a mixed bag of both fortunes and otherwise.
Okay, yeah. And we'll come later to talk about Mount Kenya region, the politics there. But before that, there's the economic part that a lot of people in that region focus on agriculture. Most of their complaints, even about the new taxation regime, is about how it affects the agriculture, taxes on avocado and things like that. Now, when agriculture is no longer that attractive, it does affect that region to a great extent.
It will, yeah, of course it will, and it has, and it will continue doing this. Because I don't know when this survey was conducted, I mean, like between which month and which month, but if I would know, I would be satisfied to claim that it is right in its claim that real estate has been hit and agriculture has been hit, and you can see why. It is open to everybody to see that agriculture has taken a dive because, one, the perception out there for those who don't farm is extremely devastating for those who farm. Now, the people who farm, largely the basket, Trans Nzoia, Rift Valley, Meru, Kiambu, Kiambu is also a very agricultural county, have suffered the effect of a bad fertilizer. We are staring in the coming months at a lost season. The farmers who do commercial farming in wheat in Narok, farmers who do commercial maize, those who relied on the state fertilizer are not going to count any profits. So the young people or the people who want to go into agriculture will stop. As an investment, if you know a business is going down, you do not put money in there. So I don't know when the survey was done, but the perception around the messed up agricultural policies in Kenya may have contributed. When you come to Mount Kenya, where the land is getting smaller and smaller, where farming is more subsistence than commercial, you will find that every home that has 1 or 2, 3 trees of avocado, and which brings like 10, 15 to 20,000 shillings through the sale of this avocado, has been deadly hit by the introduction of unnecessary levies, Christ-sent taxes by Ruto'S government. When you go to macadamia, when you go to coffee, when you go to tea in this region of Mount Kenya, these are the things that have been badly hit by the shambolic governance of William and Gachagua. Because when they came in, they labeled the marketers and the salesmen of these cash crops as cartels. So the people who are buying coffee, milling coffee, marketing coffee, paying coffee to the farmer were destroyed from the chain of supply. And they were Christ-sent brokers who have been enslaving the farmer.
Isn't it a fact that the brokers were making more money than the person engaging in the real farming?
It has always been, since time immemorial. Brokers' greatest asset is that they know what you are looking for, and they have what you're offering. So a broker who comes in is selling you knowledge. So there's no way they are going to have an equal share in the market. So what a good government do is that they engage both these brokers, because you can regulate them as a government, and then they also engage the farmer. Let us have a compromise that will benefit both. Let us put a minimum pay for a kilo of a coffee, for a kilo of tea. When you say, I remember, and I have to say this, although we will come to the politics of it, the deputy president has gone to virtually every county in Mount Kenya, promising the residents therein that he knows who messed the milk, and that the milk would be easy to sort because it is owned by one cartel, and that in 90 days he was going to handle the cartel and destroy all the slavery he has been putting on his people. To date, the people he called cartel diversified that product and left the market for him. Now, Now, the company that they brought in, which is a government-owned parastatal called New Kenya Creameries, the new KCC, has not been able to handle the milk coming because when they receive the milk, they're not able to pay in time. Why? Because, as you know, government-run companies, government-owned companies are very poorly run, and they're not able to get the market that the cartel he was talking about was able to source from within the region, East Africa, within African continent, and outside continent. I remember the former government going all the way to Saudi Arabia and Middle East, asking for new KCC's market to be exporting market directly, our dairy products directly for the benefit of the farmer. The reason why agriculture has taken a nosedive and why it is no longer rewarding has to be about 2022 August all the way to now, because the talk against agriculture has been very negative. The talk against real estate has been very negative, as she has put it. If the real estate has been private sector driven, then you come without statistics from the same Bureau of Statistics that should tell you that here the houses are run by private sector. You can see people who build homes and sell. You can see people who, like you could say for her, she has money. She has bought a plot in, for instance, the Ndegwa. She has put up a flat. This flat will break even after 20 years. So anything that comes in between this investor and 20 years, in terms of poor government policy, will impoverish her, will bring out the business progress, and eventually, Indimuli, who had a plot near her, which was not developed, he will not develop because he has seen what has gone ahead. This social housing, or affordable housing as I like calling it, is not a new concept in the world, and it should be done. But it should not be done without a proper planning. It should not be done without statistics backed about how it should be implemented. So the reason why real estate has taken a dive is because this government has introduced even levies, has introduced punitive taxes. Today, my brother, you know only one company can import steel. Are you aware? Only one company.
In Kenya?
In Kenya, import steel. Because the idea was we are going to produce our own steel so that we encourage a local growth of the industries. But that was only in the lip service. Okay. When it came now to importing complementary and supplementary steel to help the industry, only one company can do that. They ended up now importing so much than they are producing. That one weakens the manufacturing industry in terms of steel. Number two, the cement is no longer affordable for people who are building. Ask them today. So what people are doing, people are no longer, Indimuri and me, when we get small money here and there, our first priority is not to develop a building, is not to put up a flat that we can rent to people out there. Because it is going to be what we call dead capital. You go and bury your capital under the soil. So what is the solution out of this? The government must massively incentivize agriculture so that young people can go into it. They should massively incentivize mechanization of agriculture so that people like you and I, in our free time after work, can go into Kiambu and the farm, can go into Murang'a and farm, can go into Nakuru, can go into Kilifi, can go there and put our money into the soil. The danger is that we are going to be hungry. A country that divests from agriculture is potentially facing a hunger
and interestingly,
crisis.
I can see Joyce agreeing with you a lot. I just have a final comment on this agriculture issue before we move to the politics.
It's all about the political statements that have been made, on the roadside statements that have been made, because they are not based on policies. Yeah. All these discussion that has been going on in the Muli, you cannot trace it on a policy by the government. The road, the 11 counties that the DP has visited has been based on roadside declarations. He comes to visit my place in Kinagop, where we produce lots of milk, and promises that the milk will not buy it at 27 shillings, but we will buy it at 40 shillings. And kicks out literally, brings in a lot of insecurity and harassment to the brokers who used to carry that milk. Today, a lot of milk is going to waste in Kinagop. Why? Those were roadside declarations.
And the farmer is incited.
And the farmer is already incited. Yeah. Mimi nagoja yule mtu nitauzia maziwa yangu 40 shillings. So my mother will wait for the whole day waiting for what Gachagua promised. What other sector have been affected by the roadside declarations? Look at the issue of tea. Look at the issue of coffee. Look at the issue of bilateral. In essence, Nairobi-Nakuru Highway, north of Nairobi-Nakuru Highway, has been affected by bad roadside declarations and bad policies that this government has made, which has grossly affected the agricultural sector. Okay. Coupled now with other Ruto'S, the agricultural Ruto'S, the fake fertilizer scammers. All these are intended efforts, I don't know, intended efforts by the government either to curtail the food production, to curtail the food security in this country. Idimuri allow me to say this. Before the end of this year, already the food security have been compromised. We will not have food up to, say, the month of August. I'm seeing a situation by the Ministry of Agriculture. They will ask Kenyans to apply for tax exemptions to import maize.
Because we won't have enough.
Because we won't have enough. Between the three of us here.
Made worse by the floods.
Made worse by the floods, made worse by the roadside declaration, made worse by the poor planning, made worse by the Minister of Agriculture, the CS Agriculture, made worse by so many factors. Now, when the tax exemption schedule will be opened in the month of, say, end of August or early September, the three of us here cannot afford a shipload of maize. So the government will also allow the rights of Zachary and ask him come and get the exemption certificate so that you can export maize. And the government will buy that maize. You do not have access to the cargo band face that is loaded on that ship. So what will happen? Zachary will bring in, not this Zachary, but another Zachary, will bring in contaminated maize, will bring in the declared products, subject them to the public consumption. That is poor for human consumption. Before the end of this year, we are dealing with the medical issues that Kenyans will have. We are dealing with the economic issues that Kenyans will have. I'm finding it a bad policy and bad faith for this government to say that there is agricultural growth. And perhaps what will happen? The CS Agriculture will be transferred, will be given to another member from the Mount Kenya, so that, again, members from our Mount Kenya can continue pushing ourselves, will be pacified and said, so to me, it is a bad direction that we're headed.
Okay, let's now move on to the politics. Last week on Friday, the Limuru 3 meeting happened. And prior to that, I think 4 or 5 days before, the Deputy President had come out and said that he, going forward, would be the biggest proponent of the 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote debate. This has changed the political landscape somewhat, to a huge extent. We are seeing some very major shifts. We're now talking about a rift between the Deputy President and his boss. We're talking about a rift within Kenya Kwanza itself, with members disagreeing on which way to go. We are seeing an even bigger crack within the ruling Kenya Kwanza coalition, with the people from other areas of Kenya really opposed to this kind of push by the Deputy President, which is also a common agreement even with the Limuru 3, that probably that is the way to go in terms of revenue allocation. It is a very confused political space right now with all this debate. If you look at most of the papers that I've talked about it, they feature the face of the Deputy President. Kurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, vuta ni kuvute Kenya Kwanza. And I think it's on the Star, they have an image of power wars rocking Mount Kenya as MPs defy Gachagua. But I think it's on the Standard, the main headline that talks about Gachagua allies to oppose Ruto tax proposals. Now that is going to be huge if at all we're going to see this kind of division in Parliament. Kenya Kwanza has been voting as a bloc so far. As we approach debate on the Finance Bill 2024, we're not likely to see the kind of unity we saw in the passing of the Finance Bill 2023. Yeah. Do you expect it to go that way?
Of course. And as I qualify my statement, let me put this to the public, that the danger awaiting the tea farmers is doing press-ups. Because all the tea that has been plucked since January is lying in Mombasa tea auction. They're dead. Because the people who buy our tea have declared our tea of lesser quality than have been importing before. importing before those who are buying from us. So the danger that is ahead of us in terms of tea farmers and coffee farmers, coffee from July last year hasn't been bought, hasn't been exported. It is still lying here. And the subsidy they had put there to say minimum guaranteed, whatever they allow is no longer working. So what I'm saying is until we are honest, deliberate, and consultative, we are not going to solve the agricultural problem, especially for our people in Mount Kenya. Let me come to your point and say that if your father warned you against an errant villager who's been preaching for the destruction of boy child, then one day when your father has rested, the man now becomes a friend of the family where only boys are born. The mother has all the reasons to warn the sons against believing the same man who hated their father, against the same man who preached for destruction of males in the family. Essentially, a herald celebrating the birth of Jesus, yet he has been killing boys who are afraid of the throne. My analogy, which perhaps may take time before it is processed, is based on the fact that Gashagua's newfound revelation that Mount Kenya should have one man, one vote, 1 shilling is self-serving. It does not come from genuine heart, and it is not objective. It is a subjective declaration to spite William Ruto. When we had a president from Mount Kenya, His Excellency President retired Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, who had the instruments of state and power to bring forth a discussion on 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, including saving the constituents that will go underwater when we review the boundaries, who wanted to follow the due process of going to the parliament, who wanted to follow the due process of subjecting this to court opinion, public opinion. The erstwhile defender and the man who opposed 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling for Mount Kenya was Gachagua, then MP for Mathira. He went all over claiming that 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling is not the problem, claiming that when they talk over government, they will have genuine distribution and equity amongst all Kenyans. He asked Mount Kenya people not to believe the handshake brothers because they were sneaking 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling so that they could divide seats amongst themselves in the coming government. Mount Kenya people had Gachagua well. They had him so right. They believed him so much that until the court destroyed the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling agenda, Gachagua was celebrating in his village home, holding his usual sticks. What I'm saying to Kenyans, especially Mount Kenya people, do not take Gachagua's 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling objectively and do not believe he mean it. If he is re-invited back to the table by William Ruto, when his privileges are reinstalled and when he is given the way he wants in the administration of Kenya Kwanza, he will go back to his element and destroy everything that Mount Kenya deserve. Because what is 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, my brother? And where did it come from? 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling comes at the backdrop of 1 man, 1 kilometer, 1 shilling. That money should not follow geography. Money should follow people. Money should be given where people are. Resources should be concentrated where there are many people. So Mount Kenya cannot be held in fault because there are many. Luya people in Kakamega and Bungoma and Trans Nzoia should not be faulted for being many. People in Kilifi and Kwale should not be faulted for being many. The regions that benefit by numbers are the ones that are asking for 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. So that if you are sending 100 million to a constituency in, say, Garissa, for instance, a Balambala constituency that has about 34,000 people. If you are sending 100 million shillings there in terms of bursary, That is good.
Okay.
That money will build schools, that money will rehabilitate institutions, that money will take children to school. But if you send that money, 100 million shillings to Ruiro that has 800,000 people, my brother, where is equity? Okay. Where is resources following people? That child, a minute.
This debate has really now caused divisions across the country.
It is okay, but let me put it this way. That child in Ruiro, who will get 2,000 shillings, vis-a-vis that child in Mbalambala, who will get about 35,000 shillings. Equity dictates that all children born in Kenya are equal. So this is the debate that we should be having. The people who come to this platform to spew cold water on one man, one vote, 1 shilling should be asked what is wrong.
Because now this debate on one hand is about who's fronting it.
Yes.
Now that the deputy president is fronting it, it becomes a different issue. But there's so many people who have raised issue with this, that approach towards revenue allocation. And other communities feel that probably the communities in Mount Kenya feel a bit special. And they want all the resources to go to them. Yet it is a small region despite the high population. But in Kenya, we seem to look at some of these discussions through the prism of who we support politically. That if Gachagua is saying it, probably it's more palatable than as opposed to Jeremiah Kioni saying it. Do you see that kind of a problem now with the kind of opposition being given to this proposal?
My teacher one time used to tell me that afraid of your enemy. It's a good guy. It's a good guy that you need to buy a cup of tea. Mm-hmm. I'm very happy with this for out. When they are fighting, Wajiko is comfortable. Zachary has just emphatically said it. If it was Wilberforce Uparanya who brought up this discussion of 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, perhaps Kenyans would not have been as agitated as they are. But I'm happy by the gods because they made one person who is known of making errors. Anytime he opens his mouth, he makes errors. Going about discussing this issue, when he brought up that issue on Ras Ali Batwan, Moses Kuli asked him, very innocently, wewe uko ndani ya serikali. What is this that you're going to discuss with the members of the ACK church? Instead of discussing it outside, why don't you bring the issue to the cabinet? Discuss it out numbers. And you have numbers. Yeah. We'll stamp it, that will be the first agenda. It will be approved by the 27 of them. So when they start fighting, I'm happy. I want the Finance Bill 2024 to be defeated. So to the members of Kenya Kwanza who are pro-Gachagua, kindly intensify this fight. Let the second reading and the third reading of the Finance Bill 2024 be fast-tracked so that we can, the Daily Nation today have put it right. Members from Gachagua Rise are proposing to bring down the Finance Bill 2024. God will always have a way of defending Idemori. Now, this is a way of defending Wajiko. So I'm very, very happy when they're fighting. I wish to intensify their fights for another 2 weeks so that this finance bill can be brought down. Why? Finance Bill 2023, you know what they told us? Hatukusoma. Ruto read it for us, tukasema iko sawa. This time round, we made it upon ourselves to interpret this act and this bill to them so that they can say, hatukusoma, tulisomewa. Zakari alitusomea. Now this time round, they will say it's Zakari who read it for them. But it is Wajiko who is reading this bill for them. When they decide to charge, to increase taxes on diaper, Idemori, what will happen to my brother? My brother atasema, I would rather postpone getting a wife. What direction, what social direction are we taking? What political direction are we taking? What financial direction are we taking? When you propose to reduce taxes on the helicopter spares and you increase taxes on the motorcycle spares, what are you telling to the border riders? These are 2 million.
They should buy choppers.
These are 2 million Kenyans who can own borders, but they do not have 2 million Kenyans who can buy choppers. But in essence, you are telling them it's good to buy a chopper and not to buy a border. So in essence, what you're doing, you are laughing at their faces. The gods are unjust. There's one God who is prayed by the Kenyan politician. anarudisha maombi that same minute.
Okay.
There's another God who is being prayed by the motorcycle riders. Huyu anasahau saa zingine anachelewa. So I'm very, very happy when these fights are going on. We need to have our houses right. Our financial house and our economy need to be put into proper perspective. It can only be brought to proper perspective when we have the finance bill 2024 being dropped and being revised. Last day before I conclude, Kimani Kuria last week was asked, why did you decide to increase taxes on the bread? You know, he was quite abusive and very proud, and he sat back like I've sat and said, bread these days is bringing a lot of diabetes. So when we bring 10 shillings on top of bread, tunapunguza ugonjwa. In essence, that is being proud.
Okay.
During the time of Jesus, alibariki mkate. He in essence asked for the fishermen, bring the fish and bread. So in essence, these are the basic issues that you are dealing with. And if you don't want to deal with the basic issues, do not deal with them negatively, but deal with them positively. He also decides to decrease taxes on beer from EABL. So today, beer will be cheaper. On the other side, the man from Madeira is very busy complaining that don't bring beer to Mount Kenya. Yet, Kimani himself, Kimani Kuria, is bringing taxes down on beer. Don't you think we are reading from different scripts? Okay. So I'm very, very happy when this house, the Kenya Kwanza House, is fighting. Can they sustain that heat for the whole of...
the divisions could be helpful.
I'm very, very happy.
In as far as the taxation and the finance bill of 2024 is concerned, it could portend a fairer terms for Kenyans.
True.
But on the other hand, the same divisions within the Mount Kenya region politically could have a risk heading towards 2027. If at all Mount Kenya cannot find a unifying factor going forward, that politically would leave them at a weaker position.
Exposed. But are they disunited?
Well, it's looking like there's a lot of disunity. There are some members who are with the Deputy President, others are not.
But those who are with the Deputy President at the election time, are they disunited? I'm not asking you if Fred, I'm just asking this question flipped, so that we are not also taken for granted by politicians whose only role is to unite when they are eating and to disunite when they are disengaged from food. It becomes a problem when they can no longer access the pot. Those who are accessing the pot, are they disunited?
No, they're united.
Yeah. So my point is, the Deputy President, one, was not the de facto unifying factor for Mount Kenya in the last election. The unifying factor for Mount Kenya in the last election, facts on the table, was William Ruto. Okay? It was him they were voting. It was not Gachagua, neither was it UDA. People are voting for William Samoei Ruto. And that is why they voted everybody else under him, even if they don't know him. Majority of voters in Mount Kenya do not know the people they voted because they were voting wheelbarrow. They were told, ukifika pale kwa debe, kahwilbaro. Wakinya hali ikatik mondo ito. That's what they were being told. Now, because they believed William Ruto and they had seen him hold wheelbarrows, they went to vote for him. So, are Mount Kenya disunited against Ruto? Their unifying factor? That's a question Gachagua should answer. If he is the one disunited against Ruto, if he is the one disengaging from Ruto, that does not mean Mount Kenya people are disunited against Ruto. People like us who advised that it was dangerous to elect this government and that it was going to be a historical accident to bring Kenya Kwanza administration to power are being every day vindicated. And we were never united under Ruto. We were never united under Gachagua. We were not united under them. We were united under Mount Kenya interest, which we continue agitating here with Madam Joyce. And we are asking fundamental questions about what is the value for the vote. The value for the vote should be economic emancipation and emasculation from bad politicians. This is what we continue saying. But when Gachagua say people should stay united, I was asking him yesterday, suppose everybody comes and say, in the name of Mount Kenya, the God of our Gikoyo and Mombi, we are united under Gachagua now. So what is he going to do with that unity that he cannot do now? This is the question we should be able to ask him. If we are all united today and we drop guards, including Zach, and support him, Of course, I would never do that when I'm leaving. But if we would do it for the sake of argument, what is he going to do with this unit that he cannot do now? My friend, Idimuli, he is the deputy president.
Yes.
He can call 9 cabinet secretaries and 18 PSs that we have in government from Mount Kenya and tell them what Mount Kenya want done. He can call the Attorney General and the Chief Justice and streamline on legal issues that are bedeviling Mount Kenya people. He can call the central bank governor and talk to him on issues that need realignment with the Mount Kenya vision. Gachagua, as number 2, can go to parliament and call the leader of majority and tell him to bring Mount Kenya people together who have been elected there so that they can champion legal issues and put them in law, including this bill that is oppressing us, and revise issues that are not for us and put the issues that are for us. He can go to the Senate and tell the deputy speaker to bring together all the senators elected in Mount Kenya and bring issues of devolution on the table. Gachagua can call Waiguru as the chair of COG and bring all the Mount Kenya governors and tell them the issues bedeviling our people are X, Y, Z. Until he can do that, he cannot unite people outside when he has not united people inside.
He cannot jump onto the 1 man, 1 shilling.
How can he do it?
One vote.
Okay,
claim.
you know, and he said this. I remember in January when they had, but by the way, you know, it's an insult that they brought the president all the way to Sagana State Lodge, which has a cultural social significance for our people in Mount Kenya, to come and tell Mount Kenya politicians he doesn't want to hear about 1 man, 1 vote. They should leave it to him. Kenya Kwanza has a plan. You know, the delusive, illusional, thoughtless thing that they call plan, which you don't know what it is, that they should not go out there saying 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. I, as a president, will bring resources to every village and every crank. So Mount Kenya people have not been talking about 1 man, 1 vote. Only Gachagua spoke the other day, randomly, to spite his boss. Why did he tell them that way? When Gachagua was defending President Ruto against, rather 4, saying that people should not talk, do you know what he said? Hiyo maneno ya 1 man nasikia 1 vote 1 shilling ni mzuri. Lakini chini ya rais wetu William Samoei Ruto tumesema hiyo ni kitu kidogo sana. Tunaweza pitisha kwa bunge. Hiyo maneno iwache kuletwa huku wanasiasa ni Azimio. Watu ya Azimio ndio wanataka kuharibu hii kitu. Hiyo kitu nitafanyia kwa bunge. Kimani Ichung'wah tutapanga na yeye tufanye. He was right on that matter, that he can call people and do things instead of talking. 6 months later, has he done that?
0.
Has he called the MPs elected and told them that they must prioritize legal, rather legislations in parliament that are good for our people? Have they done anything in law within parliament? So what I'm saying, Gachagua's call for Mount Kenya unity is a charade. Should be dismissed, should be set aside, and every Mount Kenya resident listening to Morning Cafe this morning should continue with their daily hassles unabated and should never listen to Gachagua's call because it is hypocritical.
But we've seen what this kind of division, especially when the deputy president and his boss don't see eye to eye. We saw a perfect example, retired president and the now president. Is that what we're looking at? And could that have any benefits for Kenyans, really? Because people are wondering, are we going to see the kind of stagnation of a government that because of the divisions between the 2 top leaders, nothing much is moving?
I think this is an office that is, I do not want to use the word bewitched. I think this is an office that has bad luck. Historically, what has happened in that office? 4 outs after 4 outs after 4 outs. Nobody has survived in that office. An engagement of 5 years, historically. Even if you will not be evicted, chini ya maji utamwagiliwa maji. Nobody have survived in that office. I'm not intending to pray that we eliminate the offices of, we do away with the offices of the deputy president or the vice president. But it's becoming tricky to Wajiko now because these are issues that are being replayed and duplicated every year, every constitutional period. Go to the period of 2013 to 2022. Did we have fights? The first half, we did not have fights. But the second half, moja alikuwa juu ya gari, the rooftop, huo mwingine alikuwa kwa ofisi. Come to this one. Now this one is worse. Because this one has not even taken care of the first half. Immediately you hit the ground. Alipopewa Biblia, alianza kusoma vitu zake. You see? That is a sign of an ambitious person. Either the boss realized that I have an ambitious person here, ameamua kumchezea. We also have other vested interests, the likes of Anne Waiguru. Look at what she wrote yesterday. DP Gachagua, you are not alone in this field. Allow others.
And you know she's in America.
And she's in America.
Yeah.
Allow others to read in Mount Kenya. Gachagua should play his cards wise. Initially, he has not listened to any advice.
Final comments.
He has not listened to any advice. Let him go to the Ruya Nation, the Tawe movement, and ask them to join in the one man, one vote, one sharing. He will not be fought. Let him go to Mombasa, ask the Kirifi members to discuss that discussion. But let him not bring that discussion to Mount Kenya, because he was the author of pouring water on this discussion. Let him not fight what he started, because he started the fight. Let him not continue with that fight.
Okay.
Yes.
Final comments.
My brother, I think the punchline for this show, and as my colleague has well put it, we should also avoid hypocrisy. We should respect our people. We should not speak with two mouths at the same time. It is wrong. I mean, people have gone to school, people understand these things. So the punchline for me this morning would be to every Kenyan listening to us. We are only 21 months after election was done. When politicians are eating together, when they are looting together, and when they are comfortable in the excesses of government, they are together. When they fall out from the pot, they start retreating back to the people, saying our people must do this and this. I am asking the voters, especially Generation Z, those people born in 1990, 2000, I am asking them, because they will be the greatest number of voters in 2027, and I'm beseeching them. When it comes to development of a nation, look for a leader who prioritizes generational legacies. People who speak, act, and do as a leader would for generations ahead. When we sit together in debates like this, the leaders who come on the table and they have mandate to serve, they should not be telling us what should be done. They should be telling us what they are doing and what they have done. When Uhuru was exiting office, he was able to enumerate the things he had done. He was able to mention projects from Dongo Kundu all the way to dams in the far-flung areas of Makueni. He was able to enumerate his projects. He was able to tell people how education had improved from when he took over from Kibaki to the time he was exiting. He was able to say how healthcare had improved from where he was until the time he was exiting. We should not entertain politicians spewing nonsense, bringing their wars to us as if we are sheep tethered in a hopeless post.
Okay.
Kenya shall rise when the young people take over the mantle of discussing issues at hand. And we shall rise when we dismiss greedy, looting Kenya Kuisha.
Zach Kinothia, former Chief Administrative Secretary of the Education Ministry, and Joyce Wamahio, economist and governance expert, our panelists this morning on State of the Nation. As we continue to look at some of the headlines that we have this morning, key among them, the Economic Survey of 2024 that was released yesterday by the Kenya National Bureau of Standards, and of course, Mount Kenya politics, plus the state visit to the US by President William Ruto, which will be getting an update right after the break. Remember, a lot more coming up on Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Indemuli. Good morning.